Good evening and welcome to the Standards of Geekness podcast, episode 6, Return of the Geeks. A lot of mixed reactions on the internet about the Royal Rumble. We're going to get to that in a minute. Really, there was a lot of drama surrounding the event outside of that. We read reports on some botches and people trying to get themselves over. It was just slid across our desk a little bit ago that it actually might have been a botch related to Damian Priest and not LA Knight getting himself over that caused Drew McIntyre to have the issue. So it seems like there's a lot of people trying to get themselves over instead of getting the match over in that. Uh,
Wow, we're just jumping
yeah,
into it. You're a minute in here and we're already like through 15 minutes worth of news. God damn. Not even a
hey,
hi, not even hello. Not even a how you doing.
you ain't first, you're last.
Yeah, it's been a week. Um, Definitely have some mixed feelings about the Rumble. But before we get to that, I think why don't we just kind of go and I think we go in order here.
Yep.
So, hi, how you doing?
Hi, how are you doing? I'm doing good. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Pocket and just enjoying wrestling as a casual fan. None of the EFED drama. It's been great. Uh, Not having to deal with that. My advice to you out there: retire. It'll save yourself some headaches.
I,
How
I
you been?
I've been doing great, man. I have been doing the indie, working the indies. It's great. I like the indies. You know why? Because the storylines and the finishes seem to make sense. Uh,
So it's not whose line is it anyway?
it's not the Royal Rumble. Um, so I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
That's good.
Um, all right. Where do you want to start tonight? You want to start with AEW tonight?
Let's start with AEW. I really first off, I really want to highlight Will Ospreay and Brian Cage. They had a really good
Mm.
match, a really good, high flyer versus big man. And people sleep on Brian Cage. Honestly, not only is he a big man, but he's a fast big man. Like he reminds me of Braun Strowman, like being fast big man. And I
You
think
know who he reminds me of is Mike Awesome. Like
he's
good Mike Awesome, not
he's
not like the thrill the fat chick thriller, but I'm talking like Mike Awesome in ECW.
yeah, he reminds me of a cross between Batista and Mike Awesome and ECW. That's a great way to frame that. Um, yeah, I just they had a really good match. Honestly, but of the two shows this week, AEW Dynamite was the worst of the two. Collision was actually pretty good. I enjoyed the Mid South Street fight between uh, FTR and the Death Riders, which is weird to say because I've been shitting on the Death Riders for weeks. They're starting to kind of pick that storyline up a little bit, and I'm wondering if they're kind of getting listening to the fans in terms of you know patience, you know that people aren't being patient enough with it, or if it's just they're finally starting to sow their own
I
seed.
think it's with I think with the Death Riders it's more like, all right, let's get to something. All right, we're happy that we're finally like getting to at least something, but I still it
Their
all
goals to
still seems very disconnected with the rest of the product, and I think that's my problem with it. Is it's like it's trying to be ultra connected, but it doesn't feel like it's connected to anything else.
it's like putting a
It's
square in a
weird.
triangle is how it feels. Like on the
Yeah.
little kids' toys when you try to put the square in the triangle.
The
um,
trick is you turn it sideways. And got a
oh,
square.
I
Drop that through.
never thought about that. Yeah,
Big brain.
Mariah May and Tony Storm. They're continuing to notch that back to kind of ramp that back up. You know me. I'm excited anytime Tony Storm's on the screen. This is the first time Mariah May's been interesting outside of the brief week match she had with Harley Cameron. She's been menacing, but like they haven't given her really solid baby faces to like work off of. So I'm hoping, my gut tells me that Tony Storm will probably win the title back there and then drop it again shortly after. Um, I'm a little more concerned with the AEW women's mid card. Mercedes Monet, she's got 4 championships, across 3 different companies. I don't see the point in her having that many belts. Just did a belt collect
Okay,
like a
real quick. I do want to bring this fact about Mercedes Monet up later, so I just want to like put a pin in this, right? Mercedes Monet with a bunch of championships. Just put a pin in that for a little while, okay?
Mhm.
We'll call that a spoiler for later. All right, maybe a tease, maybe a tease.
Yeah, just there's a bevy of talent there in AEW and ROH and New Japan. You can't tell me there's not one single qualified woman on the entire of those rosters that is able to like. That's a weird comment. Big E is, he broke his neck. Uh, is that what you're getting at? Show meat.
I don't have any meat here.
The
I had
only
some
meat that
chicken
I
tenders.
have would get me arrested if I put it on camera.
I had some chicken fingers for lunch. They were delicious, but I ate those.
Yeah. Harley Cameron got her first win on AEW programming, so I think they're starting to get the momentum behind her to build towards something. I'm really, hoping they can actually do something with her because with her, it's going to be a slow build, but at this point, it's shit or get off the pot. Um, not in her case, in terms of AEW storylines, give her something to do. Doesn't have to be a title, but like build momentum to her. Have her eventually challenge Mercedes and lose. You could. The money's in the chase there. It's very easily written. She's a comedy act that can actually do more.
Hmm. Well, I think across wrestling in general, especially in the mid card, more emphasis needs to be put on those comedy acts and the fact that they are so comedy acts. A lot of people like to get down on them, but they're so endearing to the viewing audience.
It's
It's such
entertaining.
an easy way to get yourself over and and to like embed yourself in the mind. I mean, like we were talking last week about our truth and how fantastic he is, or Santino Marella, another fantastic comedy act. Danhausen, in a lot of ways, does. I know he wants to do more of the serious match stuff, but he gets put into a lot of the comedy angles, and does a great job with them.
Hmm.
These are things that I think I I don't think there's anything wrong with having championship gold on a comedy act. You
You know,
know,
I, I think people.
Goldust and Booker T were one of my favorite comedy tag teams together.
Mhm,
They were absolutely a riot working
yeah,
together.
them
And
and Kane and Daniel Bryan were probably and
oh
that was
yeah,
a
Team Hell
accidental
No,
angle.
hug it
Like
out, hug it out.
I think, and this is something that I've noticed actually since the Royal Rumble and like watching people's live reactions on TikTok and YouTube and like just reading things. The internet wrestling community and hell, we've been guilty of it ourselves. Sometimes we're not the most patient people. We're also not the most appreciative of what we got until it's gone. Comedy acts are like the glue that hold the rest of the card together, honestly, in my opinion. Because there's the lower card guys like your cruiserweight guys, and there's the mid carders, with your U.S. titles, intercontinental, etc. Then your world title. But like, if it's all serious, nonstop action all the time, it gets kind of repetitive and boring. You interject a little comedy and a little bit of sports entertainment in there, well, then you've kind of got the whole pie.
Hmm. Well, Vince McMahon, to his credit, he used to say that a good wrestling show is a variety show. I know, but a good wrestling show is a variety show, and it took me a long time to understand what he meant by that because a variety show normally you think of like something like Saturday Night Live, but
Yeah.
um, no, what he meant by that is it's a variety. Like you go if in his mind you go to a show and there's going to be something everybody doesn't like, but there should also be something that everybody does like. It's just
Well,
going to be a different thing for everybody, and I can appreciate that approach.
no two people are going to enjoy the same thing the same way. That's people. People just aren't wired like that. Yes, people are wired to have a hive mind, but for instance, the Royal Rumble, we actually have two very very different opinions on the event. They're not like miles apart, but like they're like I'm more of here's the middle. I'm over here on the. It was an alright show, And you're over here like, man, just let me wipe my ass with it.
It was a horrible show. We'll get to that a little bit later though. That is going to be our premise for tonight. We're going to be talking a lot about the Royal Rumble
Yes.
a little bit later.
And
Uh,
before we really get into the Royal Rumble, Brian and I are going to discuss our thoughts on the Royal Rumble, like how we felt watching these matches. There are only like 4 matches on the card, so it's pretty straightforward. But then we're going to have a special guest come on later tonight that is issued a challenge to debate Brian. He believes the Royal Rumble was a good card. Brian believes it was a bad card. I'm going to sit here and mediate this and ask them the pertinent questions to help get it over.
all right.
But yeah, honestly, like with Raw and SmackDown, before we get into the Rumble, the promo segments this week were really solid. You had, Cody and Punk, KO and Punk. There's a lot to say there. Like
The
they just
build up
killed it.
to the build up to the Rumble as an overall
It was good.
was really well done. I think there were some faults on the women's side
Tag
in
match
terms
too.
of the build up to the women's Rumble, and I think that goes directly along with what happened in the women's Rumble. Um,
We're in
but I think
agreement on
that was
that. I will give you that. We are 100% lockstep agreement. That is the one match Brian and I are lockstep agreeing on.
um, I think as an overall the card was promoted very very well, and I think that really shows in the ticket sales. The Royal
And
Rumble had the largest live audience that it's ever had, and you know, give credit where credit's due. That comes down to the promotion for the event. They got people hyped. I was hyped going into the Royal Rumble, and I want to make it very clear that the Royal Rumble traditionally is my favorite pay per view of the year. Like, I actually enjoyed the Royal Rumble more than WrestleMania, typically because of the Rumble itself. I think it's the most
well,
exciting match of the year.
it's what leads to the anticipation of WrestleMania. It's the start to the road to WrestleMania. It's
Hmm.
the foundation of, there's a lot of stories always going into it that lead into WrestleMania. But like it sets up your big story with your overarching thing, like last year with Cody winning the Rumble 2 years in a row to get on to Mania to finish his story. There's been
Well,
so many stories, so I definitely can
and
understand.
a well written Rumble has so many little stories that are
Mm-hmm.
told in it too. And you know, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna let everybody know now. I will say some positive things about the Royal Rumble. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like I never have all negative to give, but as an overall, no, I was very unhappy with this show. But there's more to it with the Royal Rumble, and it goes into what Evan just said. This is the lead up to things.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sometimes winners and losers don't matter as much. Sometimes they very very much do.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, and then Sammy and Drew had a match this last week. I hadn't realized it, but Sammy has never beaten Drew. He's 0-10 versus him all time. The more I think about it, I think we could end up with Sammy versus Drew at Mania. Like, there's a really, really good story that you could tell there. There's a number of things you could do. It's not the most exciting thing. I'll tell you what I'm really excited to see, and I hope they pull the trigger on is Jacob Fatu versus Damian Priest. Like, I think
That would be
I think that,
a quality match for the SmackDown side of the card.
you know,
Um, um, yeah, we'll get. Well, where do you want to begin, my friend? Where do you want to begin?
well, yeah, and then one last thing I just want to touch on: SmackDown continues to be the run over for Raw, in my opinion. SmackDown's tag team division is lackluster right now. You got one babyface team, a bunch of heel teams. that was my least favorite match of the entire card for the Royal Rumble. Um, and not for the teams that are involved. I love both teams. Obviously with who won the women's Royal Rumble, that was disappointing, but it was expected. The tag team match was a letdown and I know what those teams are capable
I think the reason that it was a letdown was because they let other like. I'm sorry, the Street Profits didn't need to be involved in this.
of. It
Um,
could have just been an
this is
after
one of
the
those occasions. This one, like I can see. Okay, like the thing. So I thought about this like a lot after the show was over, and I kind of said, okay, you and I kind of pitched that whole idea of like a modern day tables, ladders, and chairs match, and you think about Montez Ford and the things that he can do in in a ladder match specifically. He's been phenomenal in a couple other ladder matches. And you go, okay, I can kind of see where maybe they're going with that. At the same time, you go back to that same era in the Attitude Era. At the same time, the Dudleys and the Hardys had an amazing tables match at the Royal Rumble. Edge and Christian did not need to be involved in that in order for them to still have that stellar um, tables, ladders, and chairs match at WrestleMania.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was fine with the Street Profits maybe showing up afterwards to confront the champs to like let their presence be known. And it was an interesting way to turn them heel, I guess.
But
I
why
guess
do
we'll
we
dive
need
into this
another
match.
heel? Why do we need another heel tag team
That's my point.
on
We
on
didn't
Raw?
need
Like
another.
on
We didn't need
SmackDown?
no. We didn't need another
I
heel
I
tag team
mean
on Raw.
I would understand them. If they were going with more of a neutral, but it didn't feel neutral. It felt very, very heel. So I don't know.
Sorry, I'm
And
contacting our
there
guest.
are what's
He's
that?
here. I was trying to get our guest the link. He somehow deleted
Oh,
it.
ooh.
But yeah. Overall, like I've seen what DIY and the Motor City machine guns can do for years at now. At this point, I I don't want to say it was a lack of effort. I feel like it was a lack of time. It's a 2 out of 3 falls match. That's not something that can be like super quick. And like
No, a two out of
I just
three fall. A good 2 out of 3 falls match should be at least 15 minutes,
15 to
make
20.
probably 20
But the thing is you having
of
that
in
match.
ring time. Of in ring
Yeah,
time.
when you think about how long the rumbles usually go, like that you're asking a lot on out of a tag team match, and an already
I think
jammed 4 card match.
I think honestly, this was the last year that we're going to see a one night Royal Rumble. I think that beginning in 2026, we'll have a 2 night Rumble like WrestleMania is. One night will be for the men, one night will be for the women.
I think that's the next logical course of action. I mean, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if eventually all 4 of the big 4 are 2 night events:
Hmm.
SummerSlam, WrestleMania, Royal
And
Rumble, Survivor Series.
honestly, with the Rumble, I'm okay with it. Like, it makes a lot of sense for the Rumble because the Rumble is a long match. You don't want to burn out your audience. And going through 2 Rumbles, it does burn you out a little bit because there's such long, it's 2 very long matches, and I think it gives you the chance to highlight your your winner a little bit more each night. Whether you're Charlotte or you're Jey Uso, you still wanted that time in the spotlight, and it's a little bit nicer if you just get that spotlight as opposed to like having to share it. You know, Charlotte Flair, I'm sure would have wanted to be at the end of the show. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we'll dive right into the women's rumble. Charlotte Flair returned and won and is in yet another championship opportunity. Who's
okay, so there's a word that's going to come up several times over the next hour or so. It's nepotism. Um, I
Hmm.
get that she's Charlotte Flair. I get that it's about getting her that, up to those same numbers that her dad had. Um, that being said, I think there's a really big, really huge missed opportunity by WWE at this point, because at this point, all the fans that watch WWE, we all know that Charlotte Flair is destined for this, right? Like, we all know that's where this is all leading to. So why don't you actually take us on the journey with her, whether you're a babyface or heel? Like Ric Flair, you can down on Ric Flair if you want, but like he comes into WWE and he's got the whole thing. I'm the real world's champion, right?
There's a
There's a
story
lot
to
of people. Yeah, yeah. But he brought the belt up with him and everything. We have that whole story. I'm the real world's champion, and people kind of crapped on him. The wrestling fans in WWF at the time kind of crapped on him. No, you're not. You just gave yourself a belt, kind of thing. And then he showed up at number 3 in the Royal Rumble,
it. Hmm.
and he won the whole damn thing. And that was kind of that moment. What is so special about that match to me is, he'd already proven himself to everybody down south.
Yeah, this
But that
was.
one match, he proved that he belonged in the main event.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely agree.
and there's a big difference between coming in at number 3 and coming in at number 27.
Yep.
And if
And
Charlotte Flair had come in at number 3 and she had worked her ass off for an hour in a Royal Rumble match and then managed to win, I
then
think you'd
people
have
be
a
left.
very different feeling from people
And
about this.
that's kind of the problem, and that's how I honestly I expected her to win. And if I was in charge of booking this match, if I had to book her to win, that's how I would have booked her. I would have booked her at number 3, same as her
Yeah,
dad, and I would have made her earn it. And that's the biggest problem. And nepotism's a very fitting word. Um, I get it. She's Ric Flair's daughter. I'm a huge Ric Flair fan. Everybody knows that. But at what point are we going to sit here and have an honest coming to Jesus moment here and say, hey, Charlotte Flair comes back. She wins an event, gets a title, gets injured, comes back. There's a cycle that's going on here. And we don't know what goes on in people's personal lives, but at what cost are you doing this? Because you're losing equity with your audience, you're losing equity with your locker room. You you have so much talent. Honestly, the WWE women's division between NXT and both brands is probably the most stacked it's ever been. You have the opportunity to make new stars, and you choose to put Charlotte Flair over. Not only that, no Becky Lynch in the match. She's off filming Star Trek. Um, you had a few,
there's a
and I'm not
ton of
sure
AJ
the whole
Lee
match.
teases. There was a ton of AJ Lee teases that didn't get paid off.
I don't think she's ever going to wrestle again, if we're being honest. I think Punk's alluded to that several times. I think there's more medical issues, reasons why.
Right. No. See, and I'm just being really real. One of the nice things about a match like the Royal Rumble is it's so low impact. You don't even like. You barely have to bump even when you get eliminated. Um, and I just like that's one of those. I do think that it would be nice at some point for her to just make an appearance. I get there is probably some residual feelings over what happened with Punk, but like clearly he's over it,
Yeah, he seems to
and
be having the time of his life.
yeah, and I think just when you are a public figure like that, and I hate to say this, but it's true, and I throw myself in this mix. There is a certain responsibility that you have to your fans,
Hmm.
and like I'm not saying it necessarily need to be this year. It has to be next year or something. I'm not like, but like I do think at some point, um, while it's still applicable and still like would be something good and fun, I would like to see her just make an appearance again, if for no other reason than to get the flowers that she deserves from her fans.
Agreed.
When she
Hon-
left, it was kind of abrupt, and I'd like to, I'd like her
Honest,
to be able to get to.
honestly, I wouldn't say no to having her and Big E host a show for the WWE, given their connection, given their connection to Punk, the shared history, maybe like it's some interviewers or like some type of
I
person.
wouldn't, I, I wouldn't be opposed to AJ Lee being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
I can I can see that. Now I'm not gonna shit over the whole match. Roxanne came in at number 3, looked amazing, made it all the way to the end. Stephanie Becker, Julia, all looked amazing in the match. Jordan Grace, that
I was just gonna say, great debut for Jordan
great
Grace.
debut. She's joined WWE officially. Um, but of the Royal Rumbles that I've witnessed, this was the most predictable Royal Rumble I've ever seen. And
Since, since Austin, I'll say since
yeah,
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
since '99, the last one they won or whatever 2001, whichever one was the last one that he won. It was very obvious he was going to win.
2001.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, for me, this match was a 4 out of 10. The tag match I didn't give a rating on. That was a 3 out of 10 for me.
The match that I have the biggest mixed feelings about ultimately is going to be the ladder match.
And I can understand. I've
Uh,
gone back and watched that a couple times today just to kind of try to understand a little because you and I have talked ad nauseum about it, and I wanted to better understand. And I had my gripes about the match too. Um, Cody Rhodes ended up retaining, even though they both vacated the titles, which I'm not even going to get into the stupid logic behind that in the build. Um, the match leading up to it was booked really well. Like the lead in was great. There was intense promos. They
that
wanted to kill each other.
the match itself, for the most part, was really good. The effort that both Cody and Kevin put
Hmm.
forth in that match was top notch. That's why I said like I'm really like, but this comes down to like the not just who wins, but how you win. Okay,
Hmm.
and something needed to happen in this match. And I'm not saying what necessarily needed to happen, but something needed to
Yeah.
happen. Whether it
For
was Sami Zayn getting involved. Why the hell did Sami Zayn even come out? What was the point? Like, seriously, I really want to know. What was the point in getting Sami Zayn involved in this angle at all?
I was a little baffled by that. Like from my perspective, I was just like, okay, Sammy's going to turn on Cody, help his friend win the title, which I was fine with. I've been saying for weeks now that I think Cody's
Yeah,
titles ran its course.
it was a good way to get the title off of Cody. And hell, if you really want to, you could have put the title back on Cody next month and give Cody a little chase into Mania. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's not unheard of for the title to change hands, you know, in between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania.
It happened a lot back in the day. And I know for the audience at home, we probably sound like a couple old heads saying, back in the day, this is how things would be done. We understand wrestling changes, how we've said it numerous amount of times. For me, Sammy being out there made zero sense if he wasn't going to be involved. This match felt like it was missing something. They both gave it their all. They both did an amazing job in the ring. I did feel like the ladder was a little overused in some spots. Obviously, it's a ladder match, but some
It
of the
got
bumps
it got to
on
the
them
end.
were
It got to the end, man, and I really thought, like, okay, Sammy's not getting involved. Maybe they're gonna do a Stone Cold Bret Hart double
double
turn.
turn, which I would have been
I would
fine
have
with.
been if the whole purpose of the match would have been a double turn. Cody still wins,
Then
but
yeah.
now he's going into WrestleMania as a heel. Interesting.
Well, and
Very
that
interesting. And
it,
hold on, I want to make a point here. And if you did that, if you made Cody a heel going into WrestleMania when Jey Uso wins the Royal Rumble at the end of the night, now there's intrigue. And that's
mhm.
my big problem at the end of the men's rumble is quite frankly, I don't give a fuck.
Well, let's segue
What
right into that.
what So things I liked about I'm going to go ahead give my big plus, my big up for the Royal Rumble. Joe Hendry fucking rocked it out. That was everything I wanted from Joe Hendry in the Rumble. Okay,
Hmm.
I got everything I wanted out of you, Joe Hendry. You did an amazing job. Great job. I'm gonna real quick say that I think that Penta and Ray starting the match felt terrible. It just it felt. I wish they would have come to like met in the Rumble. That could have been a story that got told mid Rumble, but I didn't like it just right out the
I
gate the way that they did it. It felt very forced.
I think they were trying to start the match off with a high energy capability. The problem is Ray has lost his step. He's not the same athletic guy he once was. And Penta's great, but when you have two very similar style wrestlers there, sometimes you can get chemistry. Sometimes it looks a little awkward, and how that started looked awkward, quite frankly. Like I felt like they would have been
I,
better off having a different wrestler. Hell, have Dominic and his dad start the match. Then you have a little bit more intrigue. There's a story there.
if Dominic and Ray would have started the match and Penta would have come out at number 3, that would have been hype.
That would have been
Like
great.
that changes the whole dynamic. Now you can have Penta and Ray team up for a moment against Dom. Dom works at a slower pace, like just the same way that Eddie did. Dom works that pace of a match, which is slower than Ray's pace. Penta, I think, and I think this is like I'm not trying to down on Penta here when I say this. I think there is an issue that Penta is having stepping into like okay, that Royal Rumble crowd was fucking huge. And I'm not saying Penta isn't used to performing in front of large crowds, but there's a difference between large crowds and fucking huge crowds.
Hmm.
And when you're like expected to open up this big match at a high speed with Rey Mysterio, I think I think he got a little in his head. I think he was going a little too fast.
Hmm.
And
Mistakes
that
happen,
happens
and
sometimes.
sometimes you
And
eliminate
I
yourself
think it
in
was
the
just
Royal Rumble, and it doesn't get
yeah,
called.
I
Like,
think I think he was just a little overexcited, honestly. And he's still really new to WWE.
yeah, and
So I
I think
forgive that a lot. But I
yeah,
did feel like the that putting them together right out the gate was it felt very forced to me.
yeah, I definitely can see your point there. Um, so
All
I'm
right.
gonna get my pros out of the way.
Yeah,
Um,
go ahead.
so I liked having John Cena be the second to last. I think that tells a really good story. Fun fact: John Cena, every time he's come second in a Royal Rumble, he has won the World Championship at WrestleMania uh, in the lead up. Every single time. Jey Uso winning the event. I've been a big Jey Uso supporter for a while now with him as a single star. I've got Yeet merchandise. He's a little more than a catchphrase. I do think that his ring work could use a little fine tuning.
Little more. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, some inappropriate comments that I'm deleting and banning the users.
Because I made a gesture with my fingers.
No,
Wow.
idiots in the comments asking for social security numbers and stupid shit like that.
Oh,
Get a life and get out of your basement and go touch grass, you dumb fucks.
do fucking better.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
Okay.
so anyways, I think the right person won the Rumble for the reason of the story they're telling with Gunther and Jay. I think they have a lot to do to build it up to where I'm a little more intrigued. I'm fine with Jey Uso winning the match. I honestly think that it is building a new star. It's what we've been asking for. I think it was a little quirky how they went about it. I think they could have done a better job, and I think the right final six were there. It made sense. That elimination sequence between Reigns, Rollins, and then Punk, and then Logan Paul eliminating Punk, that was great. The sequence between Cena and Jay at the end, I thought was great too. You could literally read Jay's lips as when he eliminated John. He goes, "Oh shit." So I don't necessarily know if that was planned, but it looked like it was planned. Um,
Oh, it was definitely planned, and the reason that I know it was planned is because there's footage of Jay coming back through the curtain after the match, and he was met by Jimmy and Jacob Fatu, and Jacob hands him a Jey Uso like it says
well,
that he's
I mean, I
Royal
assume
Rumble
that was
winner.
the correct
That's
result. I
breakdown.
just
So
the sequence of how the elimination happened. Um,
well,
yeah. So and
and that music cued right
the
up to go. So
can I tell you why I'm okay with this? The number one reason I think we're gonna get a really, really interesting Mania moment where Jey Uso is gonna beat Gunther. He's gonna finally overcome that hump, and he's gonna become the World Heavyweight Champion. And I think a favor is gonna get cashed in by one CM Punk, and Punk's gonna cash in that favor on Jey Uso that night to become World Heavyweight Champion, getting his Mania moment, getting him the World Championship in the main event of WrestleMania. It'd be an interesting swerve because everybody assumes he's going to use it on Cody or he's going to use it on Roman. What if he uses the favor to cash in on Jay?
well, how does Paul Heyman owing
Maybe
CM Punk
he
a
has Heyman.
favor?
Maybe he has Heyman and
Like
Roman
Punk,
pull the strings to get the match. They owe him a favor. They've been really hammering this whole owing a favor thing for months,
mhm.
and every single time it's been mentioned, at least the last couple weeks when I've noticed it, it's been when Roman or Jay are on screen.
I do I do agree with you that like the favor, whatever the infamous favor is, like we're gonna figure that out by the end of WrestleMania. Like I
It's
agree with that. Um,
it's an interesting way to bring that story about. It turns Punk heel where he's naturally better. Um, he could lose his match at WrestleMania. Say he's in a triple threat against Rollins and Reigns at Mania, right? Is this a triple threat blood feud match? Which sounds ludicrous to me. And I'm not a big fan of multi-man blood feud matches like that. But he could lose
my
that match.
biggest
And then he still gets his Mania moment. And it gives Jay
my big
another person to chase.
my big issue with Jay winning is that to me you lost all equity in Jay's win when you gave away Gunther versus Jay on Saturday night's main event. Look, there's a lot of criticism over the years that's been given to WCW. Okay. Uh, oh, my headset's dying. Um, hold on, we're gonna have to switch this. My mic might go out for a second.
Oh no. Pardon the technical difficulties. I think our guest is having a technical difficulty. Or he's putting numbers into the chat and beating off. Who knows?
Oh no, I can't hear you.
No. Oh no.
I
You
wasn't
can't hear
even
me?
anticipating this issue.
Oh no.
I'll tell you what. Give me just a second. I think I have a headset in the other room. I'll be right back. In the meantime, you can go ahead and pontificate about more of your feelings about Jey Uso and being the right choice. I'll be right back.
All right, that sounds great. Well, so yeah, honestly, I'm okay with Jey Uso being the winner, specifically because it brings about he gets his Mania moment, he establishes himself as an actual main eventer. CM Punk can get his Mania moment out of this too, and the money, like we always say, is in the chase with the babyface, and it would get Punk heel heat, like heel heat, if he turned on Jay like that.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can indeed.
That's
It's
good.
wonderful to hear your voice again.
I know, it's a
All
lovely
right.
voice. It's the voice that makes you moist.
Well, I know there's another voice that's been waiting to get his time to talk, and he thinks that he can convince me that the Royal Rumble was a good show. I think I can convince him that it wasn't, and we've already kind of touched on that a little bit. But I have a lot more to say on this matter. So, do you want to introduce him?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the voice that will surely make it shrivel up and go inside you, Vince Russo's son, Daniel Roberts.
Good evening, gentlemen.
So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Daniel, he goes by the wrestling mark in our comments. Longtime friend of the pod. We've done e-fighting together. We've, watched him kind of grow up a little bit.
Can we really say that Daniel's ever grown up?
Outward, maybe.
No.
Yeah. So, Daniel, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. While I get things set up for you guys.
Well, honestly, I've been a Western fan since 2007, so pretty much the end of the Ruthless Aggression, straight into the PG era. I kind of grew up with the likes of Randy Orton, John Cena, so I was kind of a PG kind of kid who got to not see the blood, not see the violence, not see the Attitude Era. So I am quite kind of tied into the here and now more than these old timers over here. So I kind of know what good wrestling is.
Old timers.
You know what good wrestling is? PCW begs to differ.
Hey, we got some good stars.
Tell me more, Daniel O'Connor.
Don't bring that up. Right.
Those deep cuts.
Ouch. Jesus. Oh. Oh, good Lord. Oh.
I had to. I'm sorry, Daniel. I've been monkeying around with AI. I had to.
That looks like something that Daniel would wear in his T-shirt.
Oh, Lord.
Make sure you go to enforceyou.com. Enter the codes Daniel Roberts eats corn the long way for your 50% off Daniel Roberts merchandise.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry, Dan. I had to. I haven't seen you in person in a while.
Why are you getting Daniel Roberts merchandise at enforceyou.com?
He knows why.
Of course I do.
Him and Chris, man, they've got a airtight deal with Enforce You.
It'll make you HARD. Okay. Oh God, this went off the rails real quick.
Right. Where should we start?
So, Daniel, you laid down the challenge to Brian. You were convinced that the Royal Rumble was a great pay-per-view. Brian's convinced that it's, well, not the drizzling shits. It's kind of like runny diarrhea.
Okay.
So, my debate purpose to you guys, I want you to both take each match.
Okay.
And I want you to say 2 positive things and 2 negative things about that and debate your points. Starting with the tag team match, starting with you, Daniel.
Right. In my personal opinion, the reason I say it was a good tag team match, I think simply it was it was very fast paced. You had two, in my personal opinion, excellent tag teams that really do understand how to make a match work, and especially like Mike Cole said on commentary, these teams are familiar with 2 out of 3 falls, and they play some very strategic moves on each other, stuff you haven't really seen in regular tag team matches. Obviously, you've seen a little bit, obviously with the Sheamus and Cesaro fake tag, go for the victory there, which I think was once again another smart move. Something we don't really see a lot in wrestling, which I do appreciate that they brought that kind of back again. And also, I just love the setup of the way they kind of told the story of, the machine guns are pretty much better than DIY. In the way I look at it is they are the better tag team. They know they're the best, and they know on their best day they got their number. But obviously, like we saw, screwy shenanigans. We had the Street Profits come in and get involved, and and then obviously we saw how it ended. DIY retain, and I think it definitely was a great setup. But I do think there are some elements that I don't particularly like. But I wouldn't say it was a bad tag team match. But maybe that's just me. But what's
All
your
right. So then, Brian, you had a point. So I'm going to mute you, Daniel.
Okay, I'm just confused about something here, because so the format is you want us to say a couple of nice things, you want us to say a couple of negative things. I'm not sure in the rambling of what happened there, what you you mentioned the Street Profits getting involved. So I'll just ask a simple yes or no question. Are you saying you think the Street Profits getting involved is a good thing, or are you saying you think the Street Profits getting involved is a bad thing? I just want to know what I'm arguing here.
I personally think them getting involved is a good thing. I think it definitely does feel like it has a lot more teams chasing for the gold.
Okay. So so that's the basis for your argument.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. As for good things for this, look, I will give DIY and the Machine Guns credit. I know the Machine Guns personally. Okay, I've worked with both of them multiple times. They're very talented individuals. Okay, and the chemistry that those teams have is what we want.
Yeah.
In tag team wrestling. Okay, so I'll give I never said anything negative about the chemistry between those two teams. And I'm not going to say there's negative chemistry between either of those teams and the Street Profits. What I've been saying for a while is that I think this is building. What we're building up to is a modern day tables, ladders, and chairs style match, and to get that, we need a modern day equivalent to the Hardys, a modern day equivalent to Edge and Christian, and a modern day equivalent to the Dudleys. If you look at the way that this is being set out, it really does feel like they're setting out the Machine Guns are your equivalent to the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
DIY are your equivalent to Edge and Christian, and the Street Profits are your equivalent to the Dudleys. Okay.
Well, that's not pretty deadly then. I mean, I guess they're Kane and
okay. Pretty Deadly is a gimmick that will only get you to here, and we're talking about tag teams that we want up here. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but the gimmick of Pretty Deadly is what's going to hold Pretty Deadly back from taking it to that next level. It's their gimmick is holding them back. In the same way that I would say Val Venus was never going to be world champion because he used to be a porn star.
Well, nowadays he won't be a world champion because he's a bigot. But
I'm talking about the character. I'm talking the character, the gimmick of I'm a former porn star that's become a professional wrestler. That character was never going to become world champion.
Well, it's got a
because
ceiling.
of the gimmick.
They have definitive ceilings.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Pretty Deadly has that ceiling that the other three teams don't necessarily have. And I'm not saying Pretty Deadly couldn't overcome that, but it needs to come with a gimmick change. You know, in the same way Billy and Chucky needed a gimmick change. Ugh. Look, here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. You put these two teams in a best 2 out of 3 falls match, a match that needs its length and time. And if you're going to go with a gimmick that is going to take up that length of time, you expect to have a something definitive as a result. What we got was something that was not definitive,
Mm-hmm.
and you can make minor changes to these things that happen all through the show, and the show changes its complexity from being a shit show to a great show. But you need to make these little changes, and they don't happen. If you're going to have the Street Profits get involved, have them get involved after everything is over, not in the middle of the third fall. Shit, if you're going to get involved at that point, why not just get involved at the very beginning of the match and turn it into some crazy triple threat? You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's more
all of it.
The most
But wait, if your whole point is to come in and cause chaos, why do you let the whole thing go on for 3 falls? Why don't you just come in right out the gate? If your point is to cause chaos and disrupt the tag team division, which is what seemed to be their logic and what seemed to be the Street Profits' point, then why wait until the end? Why not just come out right out the gate, destroy both tag teams, hold up, get your moment in the sun, walk out with the belts? You didn't need to go through a 15-minute match before that. And I would dare say that you took some of the mystique away from the overall situation by letting it go that long.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, especially that ending, it did, for me at least, a little bit, like, kind of tainted it a little bit, because it was such a great match, and then it was just like, that ended, I'm like,
Well, I mean, I think that was the desired outcome. I think Brian's talking about the execution of how it was done. Personally, if I get the pen, if I'm the Book of Man, I'm probably going to have them just come out and destroy both teams at the very beginning. Not even allow the match to take place. I have them cut a promo. They're turning heel. Have them cut a promo right then and there. Use those 20 minutes to build them up. And then you set up a triple threat or another match at the next pay-per-view, and then you start building towards that.
Or Mania. Or even Mania. Like, this is the road to WrestleMania.
If you recall, in my prediction for WrestleMania, I had these 3 teams in a fatal 4-way for the tag match at WrestleMania, with the Hardys joining them.
Yep. And so, I had the same match, except minus the Hardys. Mm-hmm. Like we both see. The thing is, and I need to make this clear. I want good things in professional wrestling. I want these good things to take place, but in order to get what Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman have started referring to as cinema, then we need to make these little tweaks that make everything much, much more impactful. Yeah. And having a 15-minute match before you have the Street Profits interfere makes the whole story less intriguing, and it takes away from the overall experience of the show. If your goal was to get them over as sinister, chaotic heels, then they should have just come out and destroyed both teams from the jump.
Well, and you interestingly brought up, a point earlier on, and so did I. There's a lot of heel teams, especially on SmackDown. Raw has a slightly more babyface. I don't know. We're looking at 2 heel teams, 3 if you count Pretty Deadly, versus 1 in Motor City Machine Guns. Yeah. There's not a lot of balance here.
Especially at the moment, you got probably like 4 active SmackDown tag teams, and then you got
Los Garzas, which are heels too.
Yeah.
So 5 tag teams. Ooh.
Yeah, and even
Occasionally, the
all the
LWO occasionally show up over there. I guess they're baby faces.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help when you got two of probably your better tag teams on the shelf. Like, it doesn't.
Yeah, but that's your job
That-
as the booker to write that story. You know, that's Triple H.
The Street Profits were baby faces until they came out. They were the other babyface tag team. Like, you didn't need to make them heels.
Well, and you spoke a little bit about the logic that the Street Profits had. So my creative mind, how I'm thinking is, if I'm writing this story and I'm telling them to execute this, their logic's going to be, okay, I want to take advantage of them when they're weakened, so I can, hurt the match, hurt whoever I can. That at least makes sense, but the way it was executed doesn't.
If they come out right at the beginning and they destroy them, and then they get to cut a promo on the pay-per-view, they can explain their reasoning. They could be neutral by the end of the promo if you do it right.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
So Dan, after the first match here that we're talking, I think you agree with me that the execution definitely could have been better.
Oh yeah, it definitely. I personally feel it could be done way better. I mean, it felt very.
So can we give it the thumbs down
Before
for
that
what
point,
we got?
it was a thumbs up, but after that point, yeah.
All right, there's one. That's one. It's one. For you keeping score at home, that's one.
Second match, Women's Royal Rumble. I'm going to start with you, Brian.
All right. We talked a lot about this already, Dan, and I were you listening to Evan and I discussing the Royal Rumble? Okay. So this really comes down to, again, the execution of the whole thing. There are precedents in professional wrestling that have already been set in terms of returns from injury to win the Royal Rumble. And I'm going to give two right out the gate. Triple H and John Cena. Okay?
Cool.
Triple H's return, he came out, Evan, if you can check this for me, I want to say he came out at 24 when he won the Royal Rumble.
Let me double check. He came out 2002. He was sorry guys, my internet thinks so. That's
Wouldn't have been 2000? No.
no.
No, that's not right. No, it wouldn't have been 2000. Yeah, it would have been 02.
I can get
Regardless, while he's getting that, I'll move on to the John Cena part. John Cena returned at the Royal Rumble at number 30, the final spot, and he went. And the thing about John Cena's return is we expected Cena to be gone for another several months. Okay, we didn't expect to see Cena at Mania. If anything, he'd return at Mania, like at best. He showed up at the Royal Rumble. That was a huge shocker. Okay?
Yeah.
Huge return, shocker. We were all shocked and very excited to see him. When Triple H returned from being a heel. He was a heel when he got injured. He came back as a babyface, and he showed up at Raw before the Rumble and had a huge moment with the fans and a little bit of confrontation time with the other wrestlers to get you psyched. Mm-hmm. With Charlotte, She's coming in at number 27. Now, this is, in my opinion, the absolute worst spot you could have put her in. You would have been better off putting her at number 30. Because we all knew that Charlotte was coming back, right? Like they had said Charlotte's coming back, but she didn't lower herself to grace our television screens and cut a fucking promo before that, did she? No, heaven forbid. Heaven fucking forbid. All right. You show up at 27, which if you're a Royal Rumble aficionado fan, you know that the number 27 spot is the lucky spot. It's the like halfway guaranteed just by the number that you're gonna win the Rumble. More people have won from the 27th position than any other position in the Rumble. Therefore, you could have given her the number 30 spot, the number 29 spot, and it would have been more appealing to Royal Rumble fans and wrestling fans than to give her that sacred number 27 spot. Okay? Well, the spot that she should have been given, and we brought this up earlier, was number 3. If she had come in at number 3, and even though she's coming back from injury, she works her ass off for an hour, throws out 7 other women in order to finally clinch it. All right. Fair play to the Queen. Especially with the way that it went. If you would have had her start off at number 3 and then it goes down to her, Nia, and Roxanne, holy shit. Yeah. Think of that now. Like, think of that from that viewpoint as opposed to her coming in at prissy 27. Why is it that we have to have Charlotte Flair as a heel? We, as a wrestling collective, could get behind her. We know that she's talented. She's got that generational thing that we could get behind, but you don't give us the ability to because you're too obsessed with just nepotisming the hell out of putting another title on her. And what does that really do? All that does is it makes every other woman that entered that Rumble look weaker, look worse, look like they are an afterthought. How many of those women that were in that Rumble do you expect to honestly see in 2 nights of WrestleMania? 6?
Yeah. Or like, yeah.
Just
maybe 8?
Triple H entered at 22 in 2002.
What's that?
Triple H entered at 22 in 2002.
22. So therefore, so he's coming out at 22. That's still about a third of the Rumble left to go.
Yeah.
That's considerably earlier, and he put more face time in before his return. You got nothing out of Charlotte's return. There was the way that you did her return, everybody knew she was going to show up, and nobody was excited to see her.
Mm-hmm.
I think for people who didn't watch Raw, I think you could tell like someone would cheer and like, "Oh my god, Charlotte's back!" As a like they didn't watch Raw, so that's why I got a bit excited.
Look, some people are okay. I hate to say this, but some people are always going to cheer, and I'll get into a little bit more of this later. But when you're at a wrestling show, when you're at one of these big events, especially when it's one of those huge events with a ton of people and emotions flow through the crowd, and it's very easy to get hyped up into emotions, you're going to get cheer. Even at the Netflix debut, okay? Yeah. The majority of the people booed Hogan very passionately, but even Hogan did get a few cheers.
Yeah.
It was just by and large a negative reception. Charlotte came out, she could have got a much larger reception than she did. And quite frankly, it should have been a much bigger deal than it was.
Honestly, I've noticed WWE has a music problem where a lot of their songs are generic and people don't know who's coming out.
Yeah, it's more acceptable, I think.
Death Rebels had one good song.
Especially in the women's division.
Yes.
Especially in the women's division.
They gave Finn Balor a whole new theme and nobody knew who it was.
And you know, conversely to this point, I would argue that a portion of Jey Uso's popularity is because of his theme song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's catchy. Like, I mean, I day one ish, just me, Oos. Like, I'm down. Like, I love the theme. Like, it's fun. It's catchy. I loved it. I loved it back when it was the Usos theme, before it was just Jay's theme. It changed.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. The music specifically in the women's division is atrocious, and it's all very similar, and there's no personality that shines through that music.
I would say it goes the same towards some of the men as well, and I think some of them you're just like, wait, who is that? And then you had to wait until they come out. And you're like, oh, it's
Death Rebel. The guy who makes WWE's music, Death Rebel, has had 2 good songs that are actual hits out of what he's created. Jey Uso and Roman Reigns.
What's his name? Braun Breaker has to change his theme like what, twice or 3 times now?
I'll take that back. 3. Bronson Reed's songs actually is really, really good.
Oh yeah.
But like the rest of them are all generic and they all sound the same.
Well, like in the women's division specifically. Okay. I know Rhea. I know Rhea's song when it hits. Okay. I know Becky Lynch's song when it hits.
I know Bailey's because I think it's just a role model, but it's not catchy. It's just
generic.
Yeah.
But it's sad because she used to have a really good theme.
Yeah.
I don't know who Death Rebel knows at WWE. I don't know what he's lording over them, but like,
I mean, considering the fact that
percentage-wise, hundreds of songs and only 3 of them are good. If one of us showed up to our job and only did, 5% of what we're supposed to, we'd get fired.
So Dan,
as well with AJ, he had to change his theme back to his old one because
it was shit.
It wasn't doing anything.
So Dan, I've given you my impression of the Women's Royal Rumble. Can you flip it, or are you joining me?
Okay. So personally, I think Women's Rumble this year it had its hits, it had its misses. I think there are some good elements you can still take away from it. I think obviously I kind of agree with you with the Charlotte, coming out of 20th. I think that was a bit of a sloppy move, but I'm just trying to think like who else could you really have had a win the Rumble? I mean, there wasn't really anyone I can think of other than Charlotte.
Oh, okay. I know that we didn't get a lot of surprises at the Rumble, but I got another name that could have won the Royal Rumble.
Do you want to agree?
I mean, you could go with that. You could go with that way, even though I think the push would be a little premature for that level, for a newcomer. But how about Alexa Bliss?
Oh yeah, no, she got done dirty. Like she came in there for like what 5-10 minutes, and
Alexa Bliss got done real dirty. Like the pop for her was huge when she came out.
She should have leaping.
She was a legit surprise. Everyone thought that Alexa Bliss had been fucking written off because of some shit with the Wyatt Six, and all of a sudden, here she comes. She got done dirty on camera. They didn't show her gear and her tribute to Bray Wyatt, which I don't fucking understand.
It's so lovely.
And quite frankly, I think that she should have been later in the Rumble. I would have loved to see Alexa Bliss. At the very least, I wanted to see her make it into the Final Four.
No, yeah, I
Well,
agree with you still being in the final four.
yeah, that was shocking. It was nice seeing Trish back. She's wearing that same iconic outfit she wore at the Rumble
I forgot Trish was in
25
the
years
Rumble.
ago. Which, boyhood
Oh,
Brian's like,
oh!
Personally, I don't understand the appeal of Trish. I'm more of
Trish Stratus was my favorite part of the women's rumble.
much more yeah. Maria Kanellis. Gorgeous.
Nikki Bella coming back at 30 was kind of a what the fuck moment.
Yeah.
That was a little weird. Okay, I think it's always gonna be weird for me seeing just one Bella.
Yeah,
You know what I
knowing
mean?
that like the other one was just on AEW television with Bryan Danielson like months ago celebrating his title win.
Right.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Well, and the Bellas, like they're not under contract and shit. I don't have a problem with them showing up on AEW and then them doing a Legends spot in a Rumble match at all. Don't. I will say I'm going to add in this. I didn't bring this up before, but I don't agree with a Legends spot that has no chance of winning the match being the number 30 entrant.
No.
I want my number 30 entrant to be a contender.
I would have preferred Alexa Bliss to be number 30.
That would have been great. Yeah, exactly. Alexa Bliss at number 30 would have been
For 2
would have
years. She
been
got married, had a kid, and was there was
Even
rumors.
then, I would have had what's her name,
stuff.
Jada Parker, or like.
I think Roxanne made an impact for the NXT. Stephanie McCurr, which Julia, they all made an impact. Jordan Grace made an impact. Chelsea Green, Piper Niven, that sequence was interesting.
Actually, I think that might have been the best setup to something potentially down the road that was in that match.
Yes.
Was the Chelsea Green Piper Niven stuff. So that's where that's the kind of thing I'll give a thumbs up to. That's the kind of thing I'll give a plus to. But the overall execution, at the end of the day, we have to give this match a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And at the end of the day, it had a really bad winner that no one wanted to see, that didn't put in the work, and it just felt like something was handed to her and taken away from every working woman on that roster. So where are you at? You haven't flipped me.
A thumbs up. I think I still enjoyed it, even though I didn't like Charlotte winning. I think it was still a great Rumble. I still enjoyed it from start to finish. Was the winner?
All right, I guess that makes me the tiebreaker on this one. Sorry, Dan. For me, this was not the Rumble where something like that should have happened.
I wouldn't say it's like
I think they failed in their duty to objectively get all of these women over and get the match over. I think you have so much star power in the women's division in WWE.
Yeah,
the women did a good job. I'm not complaining. Even Charlotte winning, they all did an amazing job in the ring. I won't knock them for that. I think.
You know what? While I'm still downing on this match, I'm still giving the match an overall thumbs down. I do want to give one other prop in this match, one other good point in this match. Nia Jax looked like a monster in this match, and that's what Nia Jax's job in the women's division should be: is to be a monster. And when she up like that, and that took out four people.
I think it was 4 or 5 people.
Like that was cool. That was something unique. It was something that I kind of wish they would have done with Big Show back in the day. Yeah. And so that one spot, and the way that Nia was overall booked in the match was well done. It made her look like the monster that she's supposed to be.
Of course.
Definitely agree. Well, then our final point here, because we have two more.
2 more, yeah. I mean, good.
Let's do KO and Cody. Daniel, you go first.
Right. For me, I know it sounds weird, silly saying I like this match, but I personally love this match from start to finish. KO, as most people should know, is my second favorite wrestling superstar, just behind John Cena, of course. And this match it was so innovative. It was entertaining from start to finish, in my personal opinion. You had some really cool spots that you've not really seen before. I mean, some of them were quite similar, but Evan's gone.
He's just hiding. You're fine.
Never mind. And yeah, I think it was very innovative. You had, especially with the small ladder. You know, it was, especially if they're using it as like, a weapon and making it feel much more important than the other ladders, which was quite cool because especially KO was going to jump off it, but he's like, nah. And it was just, I do think this match it was very interesting with the concept. I feel like it should have been a no holds barred. The way I look at it, should have involved more weapons, should have been more brutal. But a ladder match, I was like, oh, okay, cool, fine. But I think even if you did the same ladder spot near the end, I think you could have easily had it called off to a point where like KO can't compete, he's out cold. So you have to give Cody the victory. But obviously, he pulled down the titles. He is still the champ. But I think personally, you can't say there's anything really bad about it. Not something I can notice. I think it was quite a good match. I don't see any negatives, maybe like tiny ones, but nothing like that was too out there.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You said that KO is one of your favorite wrestlers of all time.
Yes.
So it's important to you that KO looks strong?
Yes.
Like even in defeat?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay. Can we agree that so there are matches that who wins matters,
Yeah.
and then there are matches that how the match goes matters. There are matches that we just need to see a progression in the story.
Yeah.
This was one of those matches that KO didn't necessarily need to win.
No.
I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to come back to that point though here in just a second, and why that's actually not 100% true because of something else they did. KO didn't necessarily need to win the match. We all kind of expected that Cody was going to win the match.
Yeah.
Okay. But then they started throwing a couple of wrenches into the plot here, and the first big one was Sami Zayn. Okay,
Yes.
you had Kevin come out and talk to Sami and kind of allude to it, and then Sami ends up kicking Cody right in the face. Was it an accident? Was it not an accident? We know that both KO and Sami can be devious, and they have both been known to turn on people on a dime.
Yeah.
So the idea that Sami could turn on Cody Rhodes and align himself with Kevin Owens is an interesting one. If Sami, you got to go through all the different permutations here. If Sami gets involved and he helps Kevin Owens, and Kevin Owens wins the title, that's an interesting turn of events that we've now had.
Mm.
And we now have a heel on both shows with the championship. And keep in mind, we're about to have a babyface win the Royal Rumble, and that's the match where the outcome is going to be important. Okay, they decided that Jey Uso is going to win. I disagree with this choice, but they made this choice. That means they decided they're going to have a babyface in the win the Royal Rumble. That means that you need to have the whoever he's challenging be a heel. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at it logically right now. You got Cody Rhodes as a babyface. You got Gunther as a heel. Who's Jey Uso challenging? He's going to challenge Gunther, of course.
And they've already tried to do that, especially more recently.
And we're gonna get to that in a minute. But we're back on Cody versus KO right now.
Yeah.
So if KO wins, you have heel as champion, and you have more intrigue possible tomorrow night or tonight on Raw as to who Jay is going to choose. Okay. Option B: Sammy gets involved, helps KO. KO still loses. Cody's a fucking superstar. Fine. Cody overcomes the odds, but now we have an alignment that has come back between KO and Sammy and has nixed out Cody from that. And what is Sammy's motivation for doing that? Why did Sammy choose to do this? There's been, some hints at Drew McIntyre and KO possibly aligning themselves. There's a real potential for a kind of an anti-bloodline stable that could be built into the next era of the bloodline story, but you got to build that. Ultimately, Sami Zayn is put into this storyline. He comes out in the match and does fuck all. He just stands there. There was no reason to include him. It was just a misdirect, and it felt like it came across as something without a payoff. It felt like there was no payoff to this part of the story. This is the point. This is the point in me watching this overall pay-per-view, okay? Where, like, the literal thought in my head is, I'm watching Game of Thrones season 8.
Ooh.
At this point, you got all the players for the story that you promised me would be here into the story, but you're not paying off all the story beats that you put into the story that made it intriguing in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Then so let's say you go, all you really had to do was show Sammy more conflicted on the outside, and it would have at least had a little bit more intrigue. You get to the end of the match, and you could have had Cody go over and do a double turn. Let KO be proven right. Let Cody let that really dark side out of him and have that heel turn. And again, now we get to the end of the night where a babyface wins the Royal Rumble, and we have two heels for him to choose who he's going to go up against. And who's the other opponent? This is part of the other thing here. If you do this, if you did heel Cody Rhodes and heel Gunther as your two champions, Jey Uso wins. He challenges one. Hey, look, you have babyface CM Punk all teed up to be in that other main event that people do really want to see and will pay to see. That, like, the fact that people want to pay money to see CM Punk in the main event of WrestleMania can't be understated. Yes, I understand that Jey Uso is a top merch seller, but that doesn't mean that people are going to pay the ticket price to see him in the main event, because I'll get to that. We'll get to that. Ultimately, when it came to the ultimately, well, the thing is these two matches become so closely knitted together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is part of the issue where it's not about just it's not just about the wrestling in the match. If you want to talk about the wrestling in the match, the wrestling itself between Cody and KO was great. If you put that match in a bubble, okay, and just look at it as just this match, and it doesn't have anything to do with overall storyline. You go back and you watch that match 4 years from now, it'll be a great match, because you'll be watching it just for the match, and you won't be thinking about all the other story beats that you built in over the last however many months that led to that match. Okay?
Yeah.
But with what we had, we were at a high impact story point for the audience, and it didn't pay off. And ultimately, it left you in this really questioning place because here's the other part of this. CM Punk didn't have to bring up that Kevin Owens had lost 5 straight world title matches at the Royal Rumble. As soon as he did that, I remember, like, I was thinking it was 2, and then I'm like, wait a minute, are you kidding me?
He lost
So
you just set this guy up to be the jobber to your WrestleMania main eventer every year. Kevin Owens is the Dolph Ziggler to the stars.
Yep. He's
How is that?
Dolph Ziggler as a brawler.
So how is that helping Kevin Owens? How is that making Kevin Owens any more credible when we're built? Because here's the thing, okay? You did it with Jey Uso already, and now you're doing it with Kevin Owens, and you've done it with a handful of these other guys. Finn Balor's another one. Seth Rollins is another one. You have all these guys, and you basically said this: all these guys are main event level superstars right here, okay? Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens. These are main event level superstars. However, our main event with the Cody Rhodes, the Brock Lesnar's, the Roman Reigns is up here. It's a glass ceiling that they've created over half of their main event roster. And I just want you to keep that glass ceiling in mind because it's a huge part of why I'm not happy with the Royal Rumble.
You're not wrong. The problem is the glass ceiling's always been a thing in WWE.
It has.
All the way back, we have the Hogan era, and you've got Roddy, you've got Paul Orndorff, you've got all these other quality heels like Jake the Snake that should have been up there with Hogan. It's Hogan and Andre. It was about the main event back then. And then you look at the 90s. You got Yokozuna, Taker, Brett. Shawn was right there breaking through. And then there's the rest. New generation, you've got Shawn, Brett, Taker. I guess you can count Sid when he's actually there, and Vader, and Yokozuna.
I think Mankind can get pushed up a little bit.
Yes,
there.
I do agree.
Although he didn't go over at that point. He was a main eventer. It was just more that like he hadn't had his time yet. It didn't feel like he couldn't win. It felt like very much he could win. It just he didn't capture the gold.
Yeah. Whereas in the Attitude Era, Foley, Cactus Jack, Mankind, Duke Love, he did get there.
Mm-hmm.
I consider him more of an Attitude Era main eventer.
Yeah,
but
I do too. But to be fair, he was he was wrestling main eventers, and pretty much as soon as he came to WWE, like his first program was with The Undertaker. So
Attitude Era, you've got Stone Cold, Rock, Taker, Shawn. Triple H was at the glass ceiling. He wasn't quite there yet. He was in that later Attitude, early Ruthless Aggression era, late 90s, early 2000s when he became through. He was wrestling at the main events, but he wasn't the guy.
I agree. There's always been a glass ceiling, but you're talking about like Triple H being caught under a glass ceiling, but that's only he was also still younger. Mm-hmm. There's still this progression. Talking about guys like Seth Rollins, they've already been long-term champions and established main eventers in this company for years. Kevin Owens, same thing. Or Finn Balor. I mean, Finn Balor was the original Universal Champion and has literally never gotten an honest shake at that belt. And I just feel bad for the guy because at this point, I don't know if he could win the IC title with the way he's been booked.
Yeah. You're not wrong. There's actually a name for it for this. It's called the Macho Man Syndrome on Reddit. Because Macho is always seen as that 1B to Hulk's 1A. where he was a main eventer. He'd been a champion, but he wasn't the guy they were booking in Mania main events for the longest time until Hogan and them brought him on up. And it's weird to say, but it seems like it's always a thing in wrestling. Not to justify it, it's shitty behavior.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's a control mechanism that companies use to keep in place to keep you working to grab at the brass ring. And I mean, it's gone all the way through to today, like you said, with Roman, Brock, Cody, Cena. You know, there's a point when it was the two main eventers were just Cena and Orton, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And to wrap back to Cody,
Edge.
Taker.
I think for me with Cody, like you can't. It's kind of got the John Cena situation where you can't really turn him heel because of
You absolutely can.
how big.
I think that was the
absolutely
biggest
can.
missed opportunity of John Cena's career was them not turning him heel. And he revealed in an interview recently that they were set to turn him heel, I believe, in 2013
Yeah.
or 2011. He
But
was
then
set
because
to
of
turn heel late. He got
it
new
was
gear.
like Walmart, I think it was, wasn't it? That got really big, and they said, "Yeah, no, we're not."
No, it was just Vince and them decided at the last minute they didn't want to do it.
I do
Right,
think
just
something
pulled the
was,
plug.
I had something to do with Walmart, like apparently like he was doing quite well with like Cena and whatnot. But
Who knows? In regards to that,
So-
it's probably a business decision.
Here's the point, Daniel. Getting back to the whole point of the conversation here. What I'm saying is that there's some matches where something needs to happen. Something like to progress the story. That the whole point of the match is to progress the story. And when you're talking about the world title match at the Royal Rumble, the purpose of that match is to progress the story to WrestleMania. That's part of the story. That's part of the tale that's being told there. And I argue that the execution, the way that it was done, because no big storyline beat was changed in that match, that ultimately, because that match took place at the Royal Rumble, if that match had taken place on Monday Night Raw, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Because that match took place at the Royal Rumble, that ultimately makes that match a failure because it didn't accomplish what it needed to accomplish. Cody Rhodes didn't need to just win another title match.
no,
Wow. I was checking my chat on my phone and I saw something breaking.
I still enjoyed it. I think
It's not a matter. No, hold on. This isn't a matter of whether or not you enjoyed the match. I conceded, like I said a long time ago, that the quality of the match is not the issue on this one. It has nothing to do with whether or not they had a good match. What the problem here is that the point of the show is to progress things storyline-wise for WrestleMania. This is your appetizer for your main course in a couple of months. What did you get? Like legitimately, what did you get out of that match that you haven't already gotten?
I think the only thing I can see that came out of that match is Cody's got more of an aggressive streak and doesn't know when to stop. I think that's the only thing I can kind of take away from that. That he was willing to do whatever it takes to beat KO, and he was, as we saw,
but wasn't he already willing to do whatever it takes to beat Roman Reigns?
True.
So how is that anything new? How is that a new? I know that Cody's willing to put his body on the line and go through pain. I saw the Hell in a Cell match with Seth Rollins. I know that Cody's willing to go the distance and fight the good fight. I saw him do it against Roman Reigns. What did this match tell me new about Cody Rhodes? What did it tell me new about Sami Zayn? What new did it tell me about Kevin Owens? What did this match add to literally anything as opposed to just be the end of a filler arc until we can set up Cody for his next thing and show Kevin Owens to not be important.
I guess in that case, it didn't really do anything else other than just give Cody another victory. So unfortunately, in that case, I got to go down then. Match-wise, good. For the storyline-wise, no.
Thank you.
Middle of the road on it. Normally we don't discuss things that happen on Raw, but I feel like this is pertinent
We got
because
some.
it validates Brian in a way. So you guys know how busted KO was after that match. He's bleeding. He had to be helped to the back, right? Well, not to play spoiler, but he did just attack Sami Zayn after his match with CM Punk. Hit him with a package pile driver.
Oh,
It validates everything Brian just said.
it doesn't make any sense.
No, it does.
Does it? I mean,
Think back to what they said in NXT. We are literally destined to do this together forever.
it would have made sense if Sammy helps him win the ladder match. Well,
I
Sammy
think that's.
helps
I
Cody win
haven't
that
seen the
fight.
show. I'm gonna watch it probably tomorrow night. But I was checking something on my phone and because of the chat, and I noticed the alert, and I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. So
Great. We get Kevin and Sammy's first feud in NXT again. I'm so glad we're doing.
I hope this leads to something. I really do. You know,
If they knew they were going to turn, have Kevin turn on Sammy, surely it would make sense to have Sammy help, or accidentally help Cody beat.
it's probably because Cody or Sammy wasn't willing to help him. Is my guess is that's the logic they're going to go with. It's just lazy writing.
That's such weak logic, but
it's lazy.
It's lazy, and even knowing the results afterwards, the three of us are sitting here going, all right, so what is the logic? How does that make sense? We're forced to put the pieces of the puzzle together here. This is something I'm sorry, this is something that should be clearly laid out. You literally have commentators that tell you what to think.
Yeah.
Not wrong. Well,
let's get to the final match.
I guess our last thing, to simplify this, because we've talked ad nauseum about the Royal Rumble, about the winners. Let's boil this down to you each say one positive and one negative thing about the Royal Rumble winner and the match.
Okay.
Whoever wants to go first, take it up.
I'll go first then.
The best thing about the Royal Rumble, okay, was the men's Royal Rumble, was the setup of series of eliminations in the final 6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The storytelling specifically that was done for the Roman Reigns Seth Rollins elimination, that's the kind of Royal Rumble storytelling that I want to see. After that happened, after that moment happened, I went, okay, give me Roman versus Seth. No titles. Just a fucking grudge match. Let's get this shit over with.
And make it in no holds barred as well, because that would just be our cherry on the top of the cake.
I don't know if you need a stipulation. I can understand them putting that kind of stipulation on the match.
Maybe balls count anywhere kind of thing or something like that.
But this is, it's a match that has a very long story that it's telling, going all the way to when Seth turned on the Shield. And I like that. I like long-term storytelling. I like when I, as a wrestling fan, am rewarded for being a long-term wrestling fan.
And I did like the setup for it, though. I did like the setup for, because remember what Seth said to Solo months ago. Whenever NXT work Roman, I'm gonna curve his fucking head in. And he did it. He told him he's going to do it. He set it up perfectly.
So now my bad. Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble. Here we go.
Oh.
So I want to make this really clear here. I understand that Jey Uso is the top merch seller right now in WWE. I understand he has a catchy theme song. I know everybody likes going yeet. Okay, I like going yeet. Okay, it's fun. Okay. The thing is, when you're telling the story of these wrestlers, there needs to be a logical progression. In order for me to keep that suspended reality afloat.
Yeah.
Literally a week before Jey won the Royal Rumble, he lost a world championship match to Gunther. This is a match that we gave away for free on TV, and now you're going to ask people to turn around in a couple of months and pay for that. You're gonna ask people to pay for this as the main event when you gave it away for free a couple of months ago. And when you gave it away, it wasn't close. Understand that match between Gunther and Jey Uso. At no point did anyone on the fucking planet go, you know what? I think Jey Uso has a shot here. No, that wasn't the case. And now, now a week later, because he won the Royal Rumble, I'm supposed to feel differently. We talked about nepotism back on Charlotte Flair, but quite frankly, there's an era of nepotism that I'm feeling right now with the Anoa'i family. You know, he's the fourth member of that family to win the Royal Rumble. Yokozuna, The Rock, Roman Reigns, now Jey Uso. He's going on to main event WrestleMania after Roman Reigns just main evented WrestleMania after WrestleMania. I'm not saying that he hasn't earned anything, okay? I'm not saying that he hasn't earned anything. I'm not saying he hasn't improved as a single star. But what I am saying is when you're dropping the IC title to Braun Breaker, like 2-3 weeks after you win it, you can't even hold on to it for a month. I'm supposed to believe that you're the guy now? They've done nothing to make me believe that Jey Uso can actually win. Every time that Jey Uso has gotten close, he's lost. He hasn't actually, I need Jey to accomplish something first. I think of Jey Uso right now as a modern day Randy Savage. And the match that I need out of Jey Uso right now is my Ricky the Steamboat versus Randy Savage match. I need that huge match, but in this case, I need Jey to be the one to win. I need him to steal the goddamn show, because that's, at the end of the day, the biggest part of it all. Jey Uso he's not Shawn Michaels in the ring. No. He's not Stone Cold in the ring. He's not John Cena in the ring. He's not Randy Orton in the ring. He's not that technically sound. He doesn't have that awareness of the crowd in those high-profile matches. He needs more experience up at that top level. I'm not saying he can't be that guy. I'm saying he shouldn't be being put in this position yet. Give it another year down the road, and I probably feel very different about this. But a lot of what I thought of when he won this match is I thought of Diamond Dallas Page. You both know that I am a huge Diamond Dallas Page fan, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But I remember when DDP won his very first world championship, and I went, it doesn't feel right. It feels too soon. It feels like it was forced. It feels like you rushed this shit. It doesn't feel organic. There's an importance, especially with baby faces, that have a connection with the audience. The audience, because here's the deal. When you have a baby face that has that really deep connection with the audience, like Jey Uso has right now, like Cody had last year, You need it's not about that wrestler winning the championship. It's about the entire audience, your entire fan base winning the championship. And part of that winning the championship and feeling like it's a part of you is going on that journey. And what I'm saying is Jey Uso hasn't had enough of those big moments to make it that complete full WrestleMania journey yet. I'm not saying that Jey Uso can never be the guy. I'm not saying that Jey Uso isn't over his shit right now. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that when it comes to high profile matches, he's shown himself to be a bit of a botch machine. He hasn't had enough experience at that level, and he shouldn't be forced into that position right now. Give him another year, and I think he does famously.
Okay. I guess we're going to talk. I guess I got to talk about my part now. I think for me, obviously, as you guys both know, I was rooting for John Cena. I wanted Cena to win it so goddamn badly because biggest John Cena fan, grew up with John Cena, loved John Cena, blah blah blah. You know, I was that Fruity Pebble kid, pretty much.
Okay.
But what I can say is, well, let's talk about the moment, and then we'll talk about the winner. My favorite moment, and this is kind of from a young person's perspective, was when Akira Tozawa got taken out by Mello, and then they chucked Speed out there, and I was like, "Is this real, or are they actually just going off the cuff here?" And maybe it was planned because, you know, obviously they wouldn't just send him out there.
That seemed planned.
Yeah, but then on social media they're kind of saying, "Oh well, you know, Speed didn't know, he was just thrown out there." But like, I don't know how I feel about that. But either way, I think it was a great moment, especially he came down there, hitting the Sioux, eliminating Otis, and then that moment, Braun Breaker on two nose ropes, and then plowed right through Speed, and it was just good.
Watching Braun Breaker out move Roman Reigns on a spear was pretty good.
That was a great.
It's a future WrestleMania main event, in my opinion.
Well, maybe not WrestleMania, but definitely a high profile show. I think that's part of my argument right now is like, you know, Braun Breaker, phenomenally talented wrestler. Okay, I'm not trying to take anything away from Braun Breaker. I'm not trying to take anything away from Jey Uso, but I'm saying, like, we talk about that glass ceiling, and in order to main event WrestleMania, this guy doesn't cut it. That's the point.
Yeah.
Your Kevin Owens doesn't cut it. Your Finn Balor doesn't cut it. Your Sami Zayn doesn't cut it. Your Seth Rollins doesn't cut it. Like that's what they have said. You need to be up here. You need to be at that Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, Brock Lesnar level, right? And that's my point. Ask yourself, like realistically ask yourself, where do you put Jey Uso right now? Right here? Or is he right here? Because at best, I see him at right here, man. At the absolute best. And even this is pushing it.
See, and this is such an insult to Jey Uso, but it shouldn't be. I don't think he's even up there. I think he's like high mid card.
Okay. Yes. I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. Jey Uso is high mid card. Absolutely. If he was fighting for the Intercontinental Championship, for the United States Championship, absolutely. I 100% like him versus Braun Breaker again. Let them go at it. But do you really see him as the guy? Like, I want you to ask yourself that. Do you see him as the guy? And if he's not the guy, then don't you feel... Then what are we leading up to at all for the biggest show of the year? He was put in that position to be the guy. None of us feel like he can be the guy. And that is the biggest reason why I have to give it a thumbs down. It's not because I don't want to build new superstars. I absolutely do. I absolutely do. I do believe that he could be the guy in another year, but you haven't convinced me that he can be the guy yet.
And I got to agree with you. I just don't think he's ready for that. Even then, like all the others were just like, wait,
Well,
did he actually
correct me if
win
I'm
or was
wrong,
that a
didn't
bot?
him and Jimmy Uso have like a really terrible match last year at WrestleMania?
Worst match on the entire 2-night card was
It felt
Jimmy
like
versus Jay.
a Young Bucks
So
match.
like you're telling me in 1 year's time. Now don't get me wrong, Jay has wrestled the most matches. He's not gotten hurt.
No.
He's obviously the connections there with the fans, obviously the connections there with like he can tell a story, his visuals, presentation, his facial, movements,
Here,
it's all there. The problem
this is
is
part. Oh.
his ring psychology is just like not there. Now, if he could work with Roman Reigns and The Rock and a few other people to kind of bring that up, then yeah, I think in another year, sure. I really hope we're not just having him win this Rumble to then lose to Gunther to then win the Rumble next year.
Yeah, that's
Then
part.
it's-
That's another thing I'm afraid of.
Then I'm gonna be really mad. Like if that, I can tell you this: if that happens next year, I might not watch another Rumble live.
I think with me,
But you just said it, Dan. You just said it. You ultimately just said it. You can't believe in Jey Uso to be the guy. Now, let me ask you another question, okay? Could you have believed CM Punk to be the guy?
yes,
Could you have believed John Cena to be the guy?
of course.
Could you have believed Drew McIntyre to be the guy?
Yeah, even Damien Priest, I would have believed.
And that is my point. Like, it's cool that you have this thing that anybody could win. In theory, in like that's the gimmick of the match, that anybody could win this thing. But at the end of the day, like, this is the gateway to the biggest match on the biggest show of the year. And the way that it's set up, right now, if you go back in time a little bit, WrestleMania 27. Okay.
We're in the stars.
WrestleMania 27. The main event of that match, or that show, was John Cena versus The Miz. The opening match of that show was Edge versus Alberto Del Rio. Both of them were title matches. Which one had the Royal Rumble winner?
First one.
The first one. That, by the way, that WrestleMania is argued to be the worst WrestleMania in history. And that match between Del Rio and Edge is a part of it. Okay?
They just didn't have good chemistry in the ring, and it just was not a good pairing.
Well, there was a lot about it that didn't even make sense. I mean, you go back and you watch that show, and Del Rio brings that car out to drives that car out to ringside, and then Edge and Christian are going to fuck up the car. If you're going to fuck up the car, then fuck up the car. Like, take a pipe and crack a windshield, boys. Like, if you're going to mess up the car, actually mess up the car. Don't just be like, oh, look, I took your little Rolls Royce sticker off of it. Like, come on. Come on.
I still think WrestleMania 9 is worse than that one, but I definitely think that is top 3 worst manias. You were there live, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
I mean, I would still personally say, and in my perspective, WrestleMania 31 was the worst, in my opinion, at least.
Oh boy, we're gonna have another debate.
We're not here
but, okay, but in all seriousness, this all comes down to the fact that Royal Rumble is connected to WrestleMania.
Yes.
One directly affects the other, and there's no other set of shows on the calendar roster like this.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes we'll do like the King of the Ring, and the winner of the King of the Ring is going to get a title shot, and maybe they'll pair that up with SummerSlam, but it's not an annual guaranteed thing. This is the only annual guaranteed thing like this. And that means that the storytelling in the match, the winner of this match, the winner of the matches that surround this match are all crucial to the overall storytelling build and ultimately Mania itself because of the way that all of these matches, all throughout this card, have played out from Charlotte being a disappointing number 27th entrant that none of us really wanted to see win, to the Motor City Machine Guns and DIY having an unfulfilling conclusion because the Street Profits decided to get involved at the end of a match rather than just coming out and beating the shit out of them at the beginning. Whether you're talking about the finish and the lack of storyline development in the Kevin Owens Cody Rhodes match, whether you're talking about the men's Royal Rumble match where you have an unbelievable person going on to challenge for the title. Where show me where I should be excited about the results of this show. Tell me where I should be excited now about WrestleMania, because buddy, I'm not.
No. I mean, the only thing I'm looking forward to is Cena in the chamber, but that's it. It's like it's not like last year where like there was a lot of stuff you could look forward to. You're like, oh my god, this is gonna be a great match, or that's gonna be a great match. Right now, like
the suspense is a little anticlimactic this year, considering how good Mania ended up being last year in the build and the
but
show.
then I will say though,
The suspense just it isn't there for a multitude of reasons for me anyways. It's not that I believe Jay can't ever get there. I don't see him as a draw yet. He's not done the work to get there. And I think this is and it kind of goes to something with the internet wrestling community and wrestling fans in general. Everybody has their favorites. Everybody gets mad when their favorites win or when their favorites lose. And I've seen that reaction a lot with the Kevin Owens losing. A lot of people, he's their favorite wrestler, and they were rightly upset that he lost. I don't disagree with that. People confuse people being deserving of something, people earning something, and someone being a draw. They think it's all simultaneous, and it's not.
yeah, no.
There's levels.
Yeah.
For instance, Roman Reigns, he's a draw.
Mm-hmm.
He has earned it.
Mm-hmm.
He does deserve it. John Cena,
actually,
same things.
you know what?
CM Punk, same things. Cody Rhodes, same things. People pay to see these people. Rhea Ripley.
And Jay Uso, to his credit, has put in a good amount of work. But
I think he needs a different finisher. Plain and simple.
That would help.
No more frog splash. Get rid of
I kind of think it's the same situation with Roman from 2015, 14, where like they were pushing him too soon. I think it's that kind of thing. You know, when he won the 2015 Rumble, they were pushing him way too soon. I think it feels similar to that a little bit.
That's the Rumble where The Rock came out and lifted Roman's hand? Yeah. I mean, I think there was more vitriol towards that, just in the fact that, like,
Daniel.
We kind of knew that Roman was going over. They muscled him over everybody in a very different way. Jey Uso, he hasn't been muscling over anybody. He's been losing.
Yeah. He's been getting his ass beat. He's been ragdolled by damn near everyone in the matches, and I'm just like, this is who you guys want as your champ, a chicken shit babyface?
Yeah, I mean, is it weird that I would have believed like Logan winning the Rumble? Then I would have believed Jey Uso. Is that concerning?
I mean, the plan is to put Money in the Bank on Logan Paul, and then have Logan cash in on Jay in a month or two.
Well, I think part of it too is just being realistic about this. I think that it's a disservice to Jey Uso because you've had when Jay fought Roman at SummerSlam, right? There was a lot of people who believed it was very possible for Jay to win that match. The difference is the big difference in that match is that there was a high emotional stake and storyline storytelling that had gone into that match. Literal years had been poured into just that one match. If you would have done something with Sami Zayn and Jey Uso, um, you know, they have a lot of deep emotional past together. But Gunther and Jay do not.
No.
And I think that is something else that's holding Jay back because, the big thing, like we went on the emotional journey with Jay through the whole Bloodline saga, and that's what like got us behind him. And now you're asking us to get behind him into this world title run, but we don't have the emotional draw. All we've seen is him get his ass beat.
Yeah. And I got to ask this question to you two, especially. Like, who would you have had as your like final four? For me, it would have been Cena, Punk, Seth, Roman. I think those would have been.
So Punk and Roman and Cena are 3 of my 4. I actually would have had Logan Paul as the 4th
Oh.
pick.
I
Two
would have
heels,
liked
two
to.
babyfaces.
I would have liked to seen Dominic Mysterio in the final four, just because I think that he's he's one of the best heels in professional wrestling, but also like you watch Kevin Owens as a heel, and and Kevin Owens is like that really menacing heel. Like you're afraid that Kevin Owens is going to come beat your ass, whereas like Dominic. He's done such a good job of developing the chicken shit heel character and very conniving and sneaky. And I think if he would have done something where he would have kind of hit underneath the ring and then popped up in the final four, I would have absolutely marked out for that because I think I love good heel work. Um, I think it kind of would have been cool to see Joe Hendry make it further,
I think
just
they
because
should have had him
that would have been one of those like, wait, is it possible kind of things, which I think is the thing. Like Jey Uso was meant, in my mind, was the wait, can Jey Uso actually do it? I think the way that it turns out, I honestly would have rather had Cena win it.
Yeah.
I feel like with that, they're just. I think it's either Cena or Punk who win the Elimination Chamber.
But then I think we would have the same. We'll have the same kind of. Well, we'll have the opposite problem where it's like, oh, it's so predictable. Of course, Cena was going to win it because of his promo and all this stuff. And
Unless, what if they do go the route of turning Cody heel, have Jay face Cody, and then Cena can face Gunther?
I mean, I
I don't
think
think it's
that
going to
I think at this point, you've missed opportunities. If that's the way that you were going to go, I think you really missed the mark and you missed the opportunity to do it on a really big stage in a really impactful way. Like doing a turn like that on SmackDown isn't going to have the same impact as it's going to have on pay per view.
And I've even told Evan, I think the other day, basically, like I think it's going to be Cena versus Cody, and I think it's going to be face versus face. I don't think either of them is going to be a heel. I think it's going to be more of either a pass on the torch or.
Better. I mean, I could see a world where Cody turns heel in that situation, but more interestingly, what if this whole last run of Cena's is he loses, and then he snaps and then just goes on like the reign of terror that he never got to go on as a heel.
I think that could be a lot of. I think that could be a lot of fun. I just hope they give it enough time to breathe.
I think I would like to see that, but I think the way I look at it, I think it's too late. I think
good old double turn at Mania always is good.
I think Cena could turn heel, and you could still do it in such a way that you could turn him back to baby in his final match. Yeah, I do.
If you watch that West Scrum, Cena was very more aggressive and very more demanding, saying, I'm going to be in the chamber. I'm going to go and win my 17th title.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it. It's like he seemed very demanding in that press conference, and it was very unnatural Cena. So it was a little interesting to see them do that.
And the fact that like he doesn't even need to like qualify, he's already in the match. He's already like in the chamber. So it shows that like maybe the algorithm isn't there, maybe, but
All
Well,
right. I think
so
that's gonna do it
uh,
for this week, right?
yeah, it's gonna about do it. But we had a debate here. Who's the winner? You're the mediator here.
Oh,
Who,
yeah. Honestly, in terms of result, I mean, I know how I felt about the pay per view myself. Um, I think the winner is Brian. He did a slightly better job convincing me of his points.
I think I convinced Daniel with some points too.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's
Dan,
definitely some.
I think next time, Dan, bring a little more facts and a little more oomph to your argument. That said, you
Okay.
did a pretty good job. You held your own. I can respect that.
All you can ask is hopefully WWE put on a better show than we got at the Royal Rumble. Hopefully Chamber's a lot better. I like actually.
I'm hoping that the road to WrestleMania is a lot better too.
Yeah, of course. But right now, I don't know what's the most exciting match.
Well, before we get to WrestleMania, we're going to be looking at the Elimination Chamber because that's the next big one that we got coming up. And I'll be honest, I love the Elimination Chamber as a match. I think that's the best thing that Eric Bischoff ever brought to WWE was the Elimination Chamber. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about that with you next week, Evan. Thank you for coming onto the show, Daniel. I had fun debating you.
Yeah. And thanks again. Yeah, Daniel, it was good having you on here, and it was excellent watching you guys debate. I hope you guys all have a great night, and make sure you go to enforcechew.com and enter the
Make
code
Dan-
SOT25.
Daniel, you have to say the catchphrase. It'll make you.
HARD.
Yeah, there we go. See you next week, guys.
See ya.
Yeet.